Oh, Spirit, loving itself and playing through its creation. Thank you, Mary. Because that's what we're going to talk about today. We've been in this series of rest and play. And I was thinking about, why? Why in a spiritual community are we talking about rest and play? Why are we talking about rest and play when it seems like the whole world is crumbling on its axis, right? And yet I was thinking so much about what it means to be the life of the one, to be this place where we get to be in creation, in co-creation, to be the expression of the divine. And even when the world is crumbling, even when it feels like it's all on fire and falling apart, how do we more fully awaken our aliveness in spirit? And so I'm really aware that in this time, in this moment in history, that this practice of resting and this practice of play is critical for us to get really good at, because this is where the new normal gets to come from. How many of you have been waiting this last couple years for a new normal to arrive? Anybody? Like, when's it coming? Where is it? What's it gonna be? When are we gonna know what to expect? When is it going to be a kind of life that I can rely on again? Do I keep a mask in my purse? Do I not keep a mask in my purse? Do I have to have hand sanitizer from now and forever? Am I always gonna work from home, or are we going back? I don't know. And this new normal, I believe, this great invitation, this great opportunity for the new normal is that we get to consciously co-create the new normal, and we can do so from play. We can do so from restedness. And that when we align ourselves in that space that is the divine living itself through us consciously and intentionally, with all of our power and capacity, because we've rested, because we've remembered what it means to create, that our very lives are a work of art. Wow, what becomes possible in the new normal, right? I've been studying, again, a book that I fell in love with many, many years ago called Free Play. And it's really about the metaphor of improvisation as a way of life. And he says, to be infinitely sensitive to the world around us, and feel the work in front of us, and to listen for our intuitive voice, our muse, as she was once called, our genius, as he was once called. This reflects what's around us, and it gives us the opportunity to transform matter, time, and space through our own original being. Doesn't that sound like science of mind? Yeah. Doesn't that sound like manifestation, co-creation? And this ability to meet time from the muse, to respond to her call. This is how we create the normal that we actually want to be living in. And I love this idea that what inspiration is there is something in us that moves us, that rises into being and creates a feeling that wants to be expressed. This is the muse, this is the genius, this is the divinity within us that is looking for its expression through us. And play is actually what is happening When we consciously connect to that inspiration, to that muse, to that genius, and then allow ourselves to express whatever's rising. We think of play as a child's thing, right? We think of creating as an artist's thing. Anybody be like, I'm not creative? I hear it all the time. I'm not an artist. I'm not creative. You are creating every moment of every day. It is what we are up to around here. Now, what we are creating, how we are creating, how we are allowing our very being to be a resonant creator in this universe that we know is a metaphysical universe. This is the work of spiritual living, is to play consciously, intentionally, and to recognize that every opportunity is an opportunity to create more love, more good, more wonder, more joy, more connection. But we have to know ourselves to be the creative expression of the one. We have to be very conscious and intentional of what is rising in me. What is attempting to have voice? What is wanting to be manifested in my reality? And I think play needs to be part of our practice so that we can answer those questions, not from a place of figuring it out and solving problems and fixing the world, but from a place of what is rising in me? What is Spirit trying to do through me? And what do we know about the nature of Spirit? What do we know about the nature of the divine? What do we know about divine intelligence, Allah, the Creator? It is always moving for good. Always. And it is an ever-expanding good that has gifted us with this opportunity to be the flesh and the body of that good. And if that is true, then whatever is divinely inspired in you is a part of that move for good. Martha Graham, from the dance world, told us that there is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and will be lost. That's how important you are. That's how important your play is. Your inspiration, your expression. But I think as grown folks, we forgot, right? We forgot that there's this nature in us that is always ready to create, that is always ready to express, that is always ready to delight. But we must be willing to make play a practice to connect to that inspiration. Anybody experience like writer's block or artist block or just simply feeling uninspired in your life? Anybody? Wow, only 4 of us. Okay, that's more honest. I'm like, you are lying. And my beloveds online, please let us know in the comments. But being uninspired, feeling blocked, is not life doing something to you. The experience of being uninspired, the experience of being blocked, is you doing something to you. It means you've gotten disconnected. It means that somewhere along the way you lost touch with your true nature. Because that inspiration is always available. Spirit is always moving for good. And what do we know about Spirit? Spirit is omnipresent. Omnipresent means everywhere, all the time, never missing. And if that is true, then Spirit has to be moving in you all the time, never missing. So what does that mean for those of us who are like feeling really uninspired? Feeling like the world is going to hell in a handbasket and I got nothing. What happens when that thought, that feeling, becomes your full attention? When you've determined, because of outer circumstances, because of policies and politicians, because of war, because of violence, because of hunger and greed and all the things that could be really easy to be bummed out about, right? When you make that your whole focus, where is your connection? What are you connected to? Anybody shout it out, put it in the comments feed. What are you connected to?
The yucky stuff.
You're connected to the yucky stuff. Fear. Negativity. Say again. Depression. Lack. Wanting control. Ooh, we're talking about that in September. we got to spend some time on that one. Separation. Thank you, David. David gets the gold star. If we are focused and believe that our entire reality are these conditions of the world, the conditions of our lives, the conditions of our relationships, the conditions of our bank account, the conditions, when we believe that that is all there is, we have separated ourselves from what actually is. The greatest ill of this humanity, of this aliveness, the greatest dis-ease that we suffer from is separation. And when we put our entire attention on outer circumstances and all the things that absolutely righteously should bum you out, but when we make that all there is, we have moved away from the divine. We have separated ourselves from a greater reality, a greater divinity that is here as well as here. So when we are disconnected and uninspired, we are in separation. We have separated ourselves not only from the divine, from the greater reality, we have separated ourselves from our own divinity. Because the muse, the genius that is always calling to us, is always calling. And when we stop hearing it, when we stop connecting to that and letting that thing that is rising for its expression, when we've become disconnected from that, we've no longer put ourselves in the way of God. I've been thinking very much about this concept of transformation, which is our mission here at the Albuquerque Center, right? We are here to transform lives, your life, my life, individually and collectively. But if we are not willing to do the work of becoming aware, really honestly aware with what is my state of connection right now? And what am I willing to do about whatever that state is? Because that's what we're asking one another to do in this transformation. This work, this spiritual work, is not about controlling, thank you, Michaela, outer circumstances. This labor of love that we are all in is about connecting to our divine nature and letting that be the expression that we uniquely have to offer life itself. And it can be fun. Really fun. Because God is fun. I'm going to tell a story on my mom. She didn't know I was going to do this today, but I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, got to tell the story. So we were having a conversation, something about the concept that we teach around here, that Spirit is moving in you, as you, and through you. And that Spirit has gifted us this aliveness so that it can have an experience of itself through our lives, through our living. And my mom said, well, if that's true, I'm here to give God a good time. I was like, heck yeah. This is spiritual living, is that we are here to be the expression of the good. And yes, we can look at outer circumstances in our own lives and globally and see the places where we have misstepped. Yeah? We have got evidence that we have not quite gotten this figured out, that we have not fully moved into the conscious awareness of love as our only existence. But we get to have a good time moving towards it. And the more we allow ourselves to play and be that unique expression of the one, to dance our way into greater awareness and consciousness of our actual nature, what do you think happens to the vibrational resonance of your being? Hello? So rather than treating play like child's business, as some sort of priority that's like not grown and not like what grown people do, like somehow we are not good grown-ups if we prioritize playing and resting. And yet, every single one of us in this room and on the other side of those cameras want nothing more than a world that's more loving, than a world that is more consciously manifesting its inherent connectedness to one another. We all want a world where there is a belonging to one another that includes everybody. Yes? Yes. And do you think you're going to grown folk your way with all of your very serious priorities to get there? No. Do you think we're going to get there because we're terrified of what would happen if we don't? No. Do you think that we'll get there because we have stepped more fully as a divine priority into the truth of who we are? Yes. And would you like to play to do it? Yes. Right? Would you like to literally change the vibration of your entire life, which then vibrates and resonates and changes the vibration of everything around you, transforming the communities that you belong in, because you've raised your vibration through joy? Because you've raised your vibration through allowing Spirit to create life itself through your unique beingness. Does that sound like a world you'd like to live in? Yes. And I want you to take a moment right now, and I want you to remember a time of inspiration. Do it. You're all looking at me like I'm going to remember for you. Take a moment right now and think of a time of truly a moment in your life where you were inspired, where there was this thing that rose in you, whether it was an idea or an impulse, where the muse called you and you answered and allowed yourself to be moved in action. I want you to remember what that feels like in your body, because you're going to make friends with that feeling. You are going to determine that this is now a priority in your life, because you now know that this is how God gets here, is through your inspiration. And when you're unsure of what it is that you're supposed to do, because the world is falling apart and blah is happening in your bank and your relationships and blah and drought and climate change, when you are unsure, of what it is you are to do as this drop in the ocean. I want you to remember what it feels like to be inspired. I want you to remember what it feels like to consciously allow the muse, your genius, to move through you in action. Stephen Nachmanovich, who wrote Free Play, says, intuitive or inspired living means not just passively hearing the voice, but acting on it. Improvisation is intuition in action, a way to discover the muse and learn to respond to her call. So this thing that we call intuition, this thing that we call the muse or our genius, this thing we call inspiration, these are all synonyms for God moving through you. These are all names for the ways that your divine nature communicates. And this improvisational nature, I think about this with kids, right? When you watch kids, everybody has seen kids, been a kid who does all the pretend play, right? And it's like, okay, I'm gonna be the thing, and you're gonna be the thing. Okay, oh, no, you didn't kill me. That bullet didn't hit me. It bounced off and it flew over. I'm not dead. Right? You remember those games? It is constant improvisation. It is constant making it up. And kids have no problem making it so. Like, the bullet did not hit me. No, you didn't tag me. All of those absolute knowings as a child come from play. Come from willing to be so fully present in the moment and just be in constant making it up. And the truth is, our whole lives are a constant making it up. Stephen went on to say, do I believe what the man tells me, or am I going to try out things for myself and see what's really true? The scripts that we've been handed about how to be a grown-up, about how to be a good person, the scripts we've been handed that define success for us. Somebody else determined that, and we were handed a script, but the choice we have in it is whether or not we decide to live the script, whether or not we decide to accept the script, or if we gather up our courage and our bravery and go off script. Put the blueprints down that we've been handed. There is a God inspiring us to create life itself. These scripts are not creative. They are a set of rules, a set of agreements that may or may not serve the creation we are feeling inspired to create. It's actually a radical choice to determine your own inspiration and unique expression as the divine authority that you've been given. To know that your joy is powerful. Your joy, your muse expressed, is justice. Cornel West defines justice as what love looks like in public. If a more loving world is what it is we are after, then we must be the way of love. We must be the place love shows up. And we can't do that when we're disconnected. When we're disconnected or blocked, there is very confused, diminished, fearful expression then that comes through us, yes? And yet each of us is here by divine appointment to be the way of love, to be the way that God gets here. And when we move ourselves back into that child's place, that unapologetic, unafraid, brave, and courageous place of creation, then we become conduits, we become the flow, we become love itself. And so this idea of doing whatever it takes to be connected, which requires rest, which requires aligning ourselves with our joy and our delight, to remembering that there is a muse working in us, calling us, there is a genius in us because it is inherent to our nature as divinely created people, and that staying close to that, staying connected to that, is spiritual practice. So the other invitation I want to make to you is to remind yourself why it is you showed up in spiritual community. Why it is you ever opened a sacred text, went to church, sat on a meditation cushion, went to India in my case. Like, why is it? Do you remember what that impulse was? When you decided to become someone who was on a spiritual path? I ask because one of the things that I was really moved by in Stephen's writing was he talked about practice comes from inspiration. We practice the things that we come to as inspired improvisation. Like, wow, that was really fun. I really loved playing and making that up, and I want to do it more, and I want to get really good at it. That's why we practice. It's because we've discovered something from that place of inspiration, from that place of joy that is delightful, and we're like, yes, more please. So do you remember why? Why you came into a spiritual life? An intentional, conscious relationship with the divine. Because your practice becomes sustainable, becomes something that you really will prioritize when it's rooted in joy. When you remember why you wanted to know God. When you remember why you wanted to know yourself as the divine. Because practice is not boring grown folk stuff. If you're going to your meditation cushion or your yoga mat or whatever it is you do, and you're like, I gotta meditate today. Oh, I haven't gotten on my yoga mat yet. Okay, let me go, let me do it. Let me go. That means you are disconnected from your why. From the delight that Spirit is constantly offering. And so what if we decided that every day I'm going to now prioritize my joy? Even when it seems like everybody around me is suffering. I'm going to prioritize hearing the call of the muse when she calls, even when kids are starving to death every day. Because each one of us making that commitment, each one of us prioritizing our divine nature is the solution we are longing for on the planet. This is how you solve your relationship problems. This is how you solve your money problems. This is how you solve your neighborhood problems, your community problems, is to create from a high vibration, which means you now become an upliftment to everybody around you. And all the solutions, all the ways, all the change that needs to happen rises into you just like any other inspiration might. All of those ideas and those solutions, that's where they come from. the creative force of the one. And you'll know what to do because you've deeply committed yourself to being the way. And when those ideas rise, you gather up your courage and your bravery and all of your delight and say, yes. Oh, I am going to go knock on every neighbor's door because that idea rose in me, and just see how they're doing. Beauty rose in me, so when I see garbage on the street, I'm going to pick it up because I delighted in a clean street. Whatever those little impulses that almost seem inconsequential, that's your muse calling, that's your genius calling. That is the divine saying, yes, let's live even fuller, even more love, even more kindness, even more compassion. And it starts with play. It starts with delight. It starts with passion. Because that's what's going to give us the juice. That's what's going to give us the conviction to continue to come back to that truth in the circumstances that are really hard to remember joy in. So rather than looking out here to get it, look in here and bring it.